This session is the closer, and we call it the mega panel because it's the biggest panel ever attempted in seminars. We have 12 delegates on stage, about half of whom you've already met. And as soon as I get the go-ahead, we'll ask them up. We good to go, Gareth? I'm going to start. We have 4 representatives from each of 3 categories. 4 innovators, and I'll invite the innovators up first. That'll be Eran from VRPhysio, who we met yesterday in the elevator. We have Ron Krauss, who we saw today from Airobotics, the drone company. Topaz Conway is back from Springboard, and Moran. Thank you, guys. The next cohort are 4 representatives of government. We have the incomparable Ethy Levy, representing the Israel Trade Commission. Dave Sharma, where's Dave? From the embassy, the Australian Embassy in Israel. Hadas, who's here from the Israel Innovation Authority, who we met earlier. And Omri Wislizki from the Tel Aviv landing pad, who we have not yet met. I'm not going to stand in front of you guys when we get underway. And then we have the investor category. Please welcome Kerri Sinclair from the Kin Group, Matthew Koertge from Telstra Ventures, Yaron Eilot from the iAngels Group, and Barry Brott from Square Peg Capital. So big round of applause for the complete group. I'm going to sort of stand over here, and we're going to move at quite a pace. Now let's just meet the people who we haven't yet had on stage. So the first of those is going to be Dave Sharma. Dave, you've got the microphone. Do you want to just give us a 3 sentence introduction to who you are, what you're doing, and why you're here?
Sure. Look, Dave Sharma, the Australian ambassador to Israel. I've been there the last 3 years. Like Ethy, I'm passionate about the potential for the Australian and the Israeli ecosystems, startup nations, to learn and benefit from one another.
Thank you, Dave. Now, Omri, landing pad in Tel Aviv. We haven't met you yet.
Hi, everyone. My name is Omri Wislizki. I work for the Australian government, specifically for the Australian Trade and Investment Commission, and I manage the Tel Aviv landing pad. The landing pads are part of the National Science and Innovation Agenda program, and we help Australian startups take their startups global. And the Tel Aviv landing pad is obviously the best one. That's why we are here.
Thank you. Yaron Eilot from iAngels.
Yes, hi. Should we switch places or are we good?
No, we'll mix it up later. We'll remember this.
Yaron Eilot, partner at iAngels. We are an angel investment platform, and we're really opening up the investment opportunities for global investors worldwide to invest mostly in the Israeli startup ecosystem.
Thank you. Sorry, Kerri Ann, I'll come back to you now. Kerri Lee, I'm sorry. Too many people on stage. Intro.
Hi, I'm Kerri Sinclair. I have recently joined a family office. We're an active investor in operating businesses, so my background is 20 plus years in tech, including having my own startup, which I sold to Microsoft in 2007. Just really looking forward to the panel.
Okay. Matt, while you're in the line of investors there, let's have a quick update.
Hi, I'm Matthew Koertge. I run the Telstra Ventures Fund. Very excited about Israel. We've made 2 investments so far. So it's an area that we're spending a lot more time on. The team has looked at about 4,500 companies almost over the last 5 years. And we've invested about $300 million so far in 37 companies. Okay, terrific. And last but not least, on the end of the line, Barry Brott, Square Peg.
Thanks, Nathan. Barry Brott from Square Peg, one of the founders of Square Peg. We've been operating in Israel for a few years now. We've, as Paul mentioned yesterday, we've invested over $60 million into Israel over the last couple of years. I've been on many trade missions to Israel, involved in technology and other things. Been lucky enough to spend time with half of this group in Israel and here as well. So it's terrific. Thanks for having me.
All right. So there's always a question: how do you use 30 minutes well with 12 people on stage? And this is the tool. So I'm going to give everybody one of these. We'll start from both ends. And this is a paddle that represents true and false. So let's pass that on. So this is the way it works. I am going to put forward a proposition. I'm going to give you an idea. And you need to vote very quickly, true or false. We all understand? All right, let's try one and we'll see how it goes. Here's the first question. Israel's ecosystem can be replicated and be put to good use in other countries, including Australia. True or false? Okay, well, Ethy, I'm disqualifying that answer straight up. All right, I'm going to start with Topaz. Can you give us a quick justification for your F? Oh, sorry. Yep.
I could talk, but my earrings would get in the way. I think what Israel does is quite unique, and I just think every country has a different culture that they start from. So the basis for the culture of the entrepreneurship of any country is going to be starting from a different place. I think there are elements of every ecosystem that you can take and try out and use effectively, but cookie cutter approaches I just don't think work.
Okay. Who had a true up there? Barry.
Thanks, Nathan. Look, I'm taking the word replicate liberally.
Yes.
There's elements of it that Australia should definitely learn from and other ecosystems should learn from. There's no doubt about that. But there's a lot of things, and we've seen them on the screen many times over the last couple of days, that just cannot be replicated exactly.
Okay. Matt, did you have a comment on true?
Just a couple of things. I mean, look, I agree. I mean, I think I take a literal interpretation as well. But, there's a lot of common elements. It's a small domestic market, so there's a lot of need to do immediate international focus. I think there's a lot of elements that can be, replicated. And there are other parts of the world who've, tried to do that and aspiring to do that.
Okay. Now, Ethy, you are an expert, and you had a unique answer, so we're going to get you a microphone and hear what you'd like to say.
Yes, so I put it in the middle because I think that we can influence the Australian ecosystem. I don't think that we can duplicate because it's really unique with all the ingredients that we've spoken about during the summit, but definitely we can influence.
Okay. Now, Nick, we're moving on to the next question. When Ron did his presentations on drones, I was very impressed that he'd found himself 2 corporate sponsors almost at the very beginning of his adventure who were prepared to sign up and help fund the business. So the question is, do we think Australian companies will get behind startups by taking big leaps like those that Ron showed us in his presentation? True or false? Okay. Well, I'm going to go with Matt again because you're a subject matter expert here.
Yeah, look, I think it depends on the company. I think at Telstra we certainly are believers, and we certainly want to back companies in a big way. And we've done that 37 times in the last sort of 4.5 years.
And do you bring those products into mainstream Telstra?
Yes. So where we can. So we are obviously a corporate investor. So we are very focused, obviously, on the financial returns like any other venture capital investor. However, we are also very focused on having strategic, synergy with all of our portfolio companies, and that can mean many things. For instance, Telstra using the products internally, and we've done that with a bunch of our companies, but also where Telstra can act as a distribution channel. So, this is where Telstra is selling our portfolio company products to customers, and we've managed to sell over $100 million.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Now, Kerri Lee's still holding her sign up proudly. Everyone else has let them fall. So, Kerri Lee, do you want to give us some insight into the false?
I think from my perspective, I think it's a twofold issue. I think just like we're probably seeing what's happening in America, a lot of people at the ground level who are buying shares in publicly listed companies want dividends and want short-term profits, and they don't want long-term profits. And from what I've seen, a lot of corporate investors set up funds, but when the going goes tough and the profits start to get tight, they walk away from those and return to their core businesses, which is ultimately short-term thinking and not long-term thinking. So from that perspective, I think that's where high net worth individuals and private, family offices and stuff can step in. But at the same time, I think it's a reality that unfortunately was going to require a strong stomach by people to realise that if you want a long-term investment in Australia, sometimes you've got to take a short-term cut on your dividend or your short-term profit.
Okay. Quick change now. New subject. Are we ready? Australians have a fear of failure. Yes or no? True or false? Well, I'm interested in Dave's response straight away because he didn't hesitate. Dave, so you say Australians don't have a fear of failure?
No, look, I think that's a story we've started telling ourselves in the last few years, and it's gotten the currency of truth. But I don't actually think anyone's examined the assumptions. I mean, Australia was and always has been an audacious national project. The story is not dissimilar to Israel's. We started as a small colony over 200 odd years ago. We've built, now the 15th largest economy in the world, huge multicultural nation, respects the rule of law, liberal democracy. And no one would have predicted back in 1788 that Australia would turn out like this, just like no one would have predicted Israel in 1948 would have turned out like that. And to get there, we've taken a lot of risks, and we've stared at failure, including, at certain points during the Second World War, but at various other times in our national experiment. And I think we've taken risks we've had to, and we've survived and prospered because of that. I think this is a trope that's kind of started going around, and I find myself repeating it sometimes, but someone called me on it the other day, and it made me rethink that assumption.
Okay. Yaron, I saw you come in there. Do you have a comment on this, Australians and a fear of failure?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't pretend that to know, Australian people as well as the locals here, but, from what we've seen over the last, couple of years and the amount of delegations, the amount of people that are coming over and that are trying, and the amount of entrepreneurs and ventures, then I would say no, they're not afraid of failure. They're actually trying. They're showing a lot of guts. And so from that perspective, I would say no, just like anybody else. And I think people who dare, and entrepreneurs in general, are people who dare and take risks, then I see it as a clear sign that they're not afraid.
All right. Dov.
Okay, I'm the expert on failures. So, first of all, everybody is afraid of failures. Even if you ask that question about Israel, we are afraid of failures. The only question is, what do you do to overcome this fear? That's it.
Yeah. All right. Next question. This is a little bit more personal, and it's more for the innovators and the investors. Are we ready? I've made a major mistake that I learned from. Okay, that's a good result. Does anyone want to quickly tell the story? Anyone? Nobody's prepared to tell the story. You could have just said true or false. Does anyone want to tell the story? All right. Now, the answer to this one, I want you to be really quick, and I want you to not just flip the card over. You have to hold the card above your head. All right? Card above your head. Photographer's getting ready. I can see that. All right, here's the question. I know of a company that will become a unicorn and is about to do a very quiet capital raising. All right, so everyone with a true, come and see me. Everyone with a true, come talk to me later before you talk to everybody else. While the trues have got their cards up there, do we want to go through and mention some names? Are we able to mention some names? No. Nobody? Oh my gosh. Okay.
Every company we are investing in, we are sure that they are going to become a unicorn.
All right. Okay, next one. I like Australia, but my activities would have produced better results if I was based in Tel Aviv. True or false?
My activities here.
Okay. Well, who said true? Anyone say true? Dov? Yeah. Okay, Dov, do you want to give us the background why?
Because I'm Israeli living in Tel Aviv, so...
All right. All right. You're a tough guy, but you've done a lot of work for us in the last 2 days. Next question. I would always prefer to pursue my exit through a trade sale rather than an IPO. So I'd rather sell my business through selling it to someone else than going IPO. Anyone? Okay, Omri, you were fairly quick.
I'm not going to sell the Australian government anytime soon or IPO it. But I think there's no distinct question. It's a very tangible situation in who your investors are, what the situation of the company is, what you want to achieve, how big you want to grow. It's not right for every company to IPO or exit. Yes. Generally, in Israel, there have been a lot of talking about why are people exiting. People shouldn't exit that much, shouldn't sell their companies. They should look to grow bigger Israeli companies, and that is something that I believe that Australians will also be talking about in a few years. But again, it is really per company.
Okay, good. Change of direction now. We're already deep breath. The proposition is, my age is no barrier to my success in this market. Okay, well, we've got a couple of... We've got a false there. Hadas, you're not dyslexic, are you?
Put in the microphone.
It's hard for me because I think I'm answering more personally when you say, because I'm not a startupist, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm working in the government, and I think that there maybe age is a little bit more difficult, but I don't think that that's necessarily what you were referring to, but I did take it a little bit to heart. But I do think probably in the entrepreneur community, youth is actually an advantage, and hopefully that can kind of spread into other areas as well. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, I recall last year we had Adir Schiffman sitting about here. Adir is the chairman of Catapult, and back then they had just listed, and they were sub $1, and this year they're a lot further along, and he happened to talk about age being a major benefit for the entrepreneur at that stage. So I don't think that's probably changed in a year. He's probably only a year older, but just by way of example. All right, next question. This is the Part B question. Are we ready? My gender is no barrier to me playing in this industry. Das. Sorry, did you get the question? Yes. Okay. What do you do? Halfway? Okay, we'll come back to you, Topaz. Das.
No, I still think it's a barrier. I mean, I'd like to believe that there are certain advantages. Certainly, I think a lot of VCs are looking for female entrepreneurs and leading it, but I think it's also a question of how you can interact with your peers and how many entrepreneurs are looking for female CTOs and female engineers or marketing representatives. And I don't see it happening as much as I'd like to see it.
Okay.
And I think it's a question of the crowd.
Oh, I'll come back to you, Dov. Topaz?
I think it's an advantage being female because we do better at running businesses often. I mean, our ROI... Woo! So that's why it's better to be a female entrepreneur. The equal opportunity piece is the part that's missing.
Okay. Dov, you're happy with that? Answered. All right. Now, this is a tricky question, so you have to listen carefully. Sorry, it's not a question, it's a proposition. The proposition is, yes, I would like to sign a copy of my book for you. All right. All right. All right. You can sign it later. Thank you, Dov. Nobody else? All right. So this question is now really more for the Israelis. At what point... in fact, that's a question. That's not a proposition. That is not going to work. Okay. Where's my other propositions? Okay, the next propositions. Universities should exploit the opportunities of their research and make real money out of the commercialization of those inventions. Okay, well, Kerri Lee, you're one of the falses, and I'll come back to Dan.
I mean, maybe it's a very simple, naive approach, but I believe that people who do brilliant research are not always the best people to build brilliant companies. And if you're incented to commercialize things that aren't necessarily fully thought through or that you don't have a pure research focus, then I think you just get average. It's like two outliers of good and bad, and you just might get average in the middle as a risk, where that's mine.
Okay. Dave, do you have a comment on your false?
Look, I'm not against, commercialisation outfits, but I think the purpose of universities is to teach and to do research, and sure, they should be making some money off it, but if that becomes the prime purpose, how are they any different to a corporate?
Okay. Anyone on the true camp there want to make a comment about universities benefiting from research?
I think the sustainability of education has to, and of the whole process of innovation, has to have a financial return. Doesn't mean that universities should be the ones building the companies within universities, but certainly encouraging that and providing resources for that to happen easily, like some of the US universities do, like Stanford and Harvard and MIT. So it's more, making that part of the culture of research within university, that a commercial outcome is a good thing, and you can do that if you have something good enough.
And with the Aussies on the panel, who's got experience with working with universities, either for the stimulation of new developments or partnerships for commercialisation? Matt?
Yeah, so look, I've been through this a few times, and it does sadden me when some really incredible research comes out of, an academic institution, and then, a company makes a huge amount of money on it and the university gets absolutely nothing. I think there's just a real wealth transfer, and and I very much agree. The universities shouldn't be companies, but I think there are much better models, and I think someone mentioned Stanford before, who actually do this much better than the Australian universities, and I think there's certainly scope for improvement.
I'll come to you.
I'd like to add a small comment. So me and Dave actually were touring the country and met some interesting universities, and I think Dave is right. The ultimate goal for universities is to have better research all the time. They are researchers. That's their biggest contribution to the world, to science, to tech. But they do need to have a good system that will allow these researchers to commercialize their ideas, let the university have money, but not lose these researchers or the money to other corporates, but let them go back in the circle of publications, commercializations, and make that circle happen. And that is what I get the feedback from a lot of people in Australia that feel that are missing, specifically in this country. So it is, yes, research is the goal, but you do need to have a very good commercialization system.
Yes. Now, the Israelis, Dov, I saw you holding your true sign up. Experiences with universities that are positive?
You can see, we work very close to universities in Israel. It's part of our fund and philosophy of deep technology universities. You see in Israel, those universities that are doing very bad job in commercialization, they lose a lot. The world, is losing a lot by having smart guys doing development which are unrelated to anything. It's all theory. And even if they have something good, the university doesn't enjoy it because they don't bother to really commercialize it in the right way. You see on the other side, other universities, non-A's, that are doing very good job in commercialization. The professors enjoys, the university enjoys, the world enjoys.
Okay, very good. Now, Evan and Ran here on the end, Eran, haven't had a chance to really answer, but you've always been going with the flow. So I wonder do either of you two have a question you would like to ask the other panelists?
Actually, I would like to just say two remarks about the differences between the Israeli ecosystem and the Australian ecosystem. There are two tests that could easily divide the differences between the Israeli and the Australian ecosystem. One called the mother test. If an Australian entrepreneur go to his mother and tell her that he's going to be entrepreneur, what her reaction will be? Probably not as good as the Israeli mother. When I came to my mother and told her that I want to be an entrepreneur, she said, that's great, because we got great role models like Dov, that was my mother thought about when I told her that I'm going to be an entrepreneur. So that's the first test you can ask yourself. The second test is actually my professor in Ben Gurion is doing the test, is giving us 2 phone calls to reach any person that we want in Israel, and just give us 24 hours to try to reach that specific person, no matter what rank and what position is. And that's the amazing power in the Israeli ecosystem. By 2 phones and 24 hours, we can reach anyone in any position in any company. And that allows us to close loops very fast. So that's 2 simple tests that you can easily test on the Australian ecosystem to see how it goes.
Thank you. All right. Change of direction again. The next statement. In about 12 minutes, I'm going to be outside drinking heavily. All right, next one. Next one is I would like Ethy Levy to extend her stay in Australia and do the bridge again. Give me one of those for a second.
No, you want me in Israel.
All right. Back to a little bit of serious for a few more questions. Over the next few years, China will have more of an effect on the Australian ecosystem than Israel is having.
How many years are we talking?
I said 10, I think.
10?
Over the next 10 years, China's effect will be bigger. Okay, Yaron, that's an interesting answer from you.
I mean, we're seeing its increased effects, I think, worldwide. It might have a lot more effect, it will have a lot more effect on Israel And we're seeing a lot more capital coming into Israel from China. And we're seeing them developing, companies. And I think it will have a global effect on everybody, not just Australia, not just Israel. And we're seeing that trend. I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, certainly not in 10 years.
Okay. Dov?
Mike?
They might transfer Dave to China, and then it could happen.
It's a great answer. Did everyone hear that? Yeah, and Ethy. Ethy and Dave could work in China, and then it's going to happen. Great answer. All right. And does anyone else want to make a comment on Asia, China, and the effect on the Australian ecosystem? On Trump. I'm staying away from that for the rest of the day. It's been theatre. There's enough theatre in this room. Okay, slightly different question, and it's a two-part question. Part A is, I have young children who are yet to decide what they're going to study.
If they're not born yet?
No, well, if they're not born, you can throw that in if you like. Okay, so all the people who said true, and for those who said false, you can use your imagination. What is it, we'll run through the group, whoever wants to, what is it you want them to be studying, or you think they should be studying, for them to be set for their, let's say, their early stage in adult life? Do you want to, let's start at that end, Barrett.
Yeah, I've got 4 children. There's one that might know what they want to do, but the others certainly don't. I think the key thing is just having a general education and studying something you enjoy. I think enjoying what you study is absolutely critical. And then once you've done that, in particular, if you don't know exactly what you want to do, surround yourself with amazing people. Find a couple of great mentors, learn from them, work with them, and then go from it. Ideally, I think someone mentioned it yesterday, the intersection between something you're good at and something you enjoy, you'll get success.
I agree, and I would just add, expose them to as many options as you can. Let them be curious for as long as possible, and let them choose exactly what was said here by Barry.
So I have 2 kids. One of them is very interested in IT and computing, so I think he will just sort of naturally go that way. My daughter, I'm not sure. It's probably too early to know, but she has lots of interest, and we're trying to encourage her to look at many things.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm the same. I've got quite a small son. He's 6. But I think from my perspective, maybe it was being a woman in engineering, which is what I started doing, which was I was sort of pushed to by my parents, is I didn't know what I wanted to do, and my parents were a huge influencer on me. And I think that no one really knows what they want to do when they get out of school. So I'm kind of for just do what you want to do, and then you'll work it out. You'll find something that you love, and then you might go and do more study around that.
In the long term, very long term, as it seems, I think my children will grow up in a completely different world than what I grew up in. And really, after this amazing conference talking about future technologies, it's hard to say what will be the thing that we would like them to do. And so it's very, very hard to know for now.
Hadas?
As someone with a liberal arts education, who did enjoy her studies in anthropology, I do tend to feel like it's great to have some basis in math and sciences, and I would definitely want to encourage my children to look into that. Because I didn't do it. But of course, it's always a question of what they enjoy. But yeah, I don't have kids yet, so we'll see. Hopefully.
Okay. Dave.
I've told my children it's either a doctor or a lawyer.
And how old are they?
9, 6, and 3.
Okay. How are they taking that?
That's what I was told growing up. So if it was good for me, it's good for them.
You sound like a Jewish mom.
Yes. From one to the next Jewish
Indian
mum,
families
Ethy?
are the same
Yeah.
as Jewish families, believe me.
And Ethy, how many kids do you have?
You know that, Nathan. Don't embarrass me.
Okay.
So, yeah, I've got a few kids, and one more than Barry. And I try to expose them to as many options as possible. But I do feel that the girls need more push towards STEMs. My son has a natural and very gifted in IT and software. But I really try to expose them through after-school activity to robotics, to science, to art, And at the end of the day, we won't be able to tell them what to study, but we can at least open their minds to new areas.
Dov, grandchildren?
Four kids now, 4 kids. The oldest one is art, number 2 is physician, number 3 is going to be entrepreneur, number 4 is going to be scientist. What would I like them to be? Football players.
Topaz.
That was good. I have 3 daughters, and what I wanted for them was to be gainfully employed and moved out of the house. I don't know what that says about me, but I do have grandchildren now, and I am, and 2 of them are girls. So I'm very keen for them to be exposed to good role models and different ways of doing things than currently they get in school or through some of the examples they have in their life.
So I don't have any kids, but I'm still a kid myself, so I'll answer that from that perspective.
Okay.
I hated school, and I dropped out of university. And there's a beautiful TED Talk by Sir Ken Robinson. If anybody saw that, or if you haven't seen, you have to see it. It's one of the most popular TED Talks out there. So my answer is a bit more complicated. I think we shouldn't teach them 90% of what we're teaching them today. Instead, teach them to meditate, to be brave, to be creative. It's much more important. And there's an interesting note in that TED Talk. There's a test that they give people for creativity. So they give you an object and they ask you how many uses you can find to use that object in different situations. They give you a couple of minutes. So they give you a brick and they say, give me as many uses for that brick that you can think of. And the best scoring group for this test is kindergarten children. So.
Okay. Thanks. That's a very good answer.
Yeah, so basically, totally agreeing with what Ran just said. I have 3 little daughters, and the most important thing is that they'll get up in the morning with energy to be curious and just do what they love.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So we're going to wrap this session, but there's one more question. It is, it's like this. Nathan, I have a question for you. That's the statement. Nathan, I have a question for you. True or false? All right, well,
Did you vote for Trump?
Luckily, didn't have the choice. So the 3 of you at least, come talk to me when we're having drinks in 10 minutes' time, and I'd be happy to take your questions. Let's show our appreciation to the panel, please. Thank you, guys. You can move down.